Welcome back. Now it's time for our daily press review, and we are joined here in the studio with Mr. Amr Abdel Rahmman. He's a political analyst. Good morning, sir.
Good morning to you.
And we start off from اليوم السابع newspaper, and we read the following headline: President Fattah al-Sisi holds a phone call with Jordan's king. President Fattah al-Sisi held a phone call on Monday with Jordan's King Abdullah. During the call, the president expressed his sincere condolences in the victims of the terrorist attack that took place on Sunday at the city of Ankara. Also on Monday, President al-Sisi met with the Tunisian Foreign Minister Khamis al-Ginawi. The Tunisian Foreign Minister conveyed the greetings of the Tunisian President Beji Qaid Essebsi to President al-Sisi. Also on Monday, President Sisi met with Lebanese Foreign Minister Gibran Bassil. The Lebanese Foreign Minister handed President Sisi a message from the Lebanese President Michel Aoun, in which Aoun stressed his keenness to strengthen the excellent relations that combine Egypt and Lebanon. President Fattah al-Sisi also met on Monday with a delegation from the American Jewish Committee headed by Mr. John Shapiro, chairman of the committee. The president welcomed the American delegation and stressed his commitment to constructive communications with various spectrum of the American society in order to clarify the reality of the situation in Egypt and the region, and also to strengthen the strategic relationship between Egypt and the United States. So, Mr. Amr, let's first focus on the terrorist attack that took place in Jordan on Sunday. And in your opinion, how can we intensify international cooperation to combat terrorism and eradicate it from its roots?
Well, let me first pay our condolences to our martyrs of the army and the police against terrorism in Sinai and all over the country. The President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has accomplished a number of visits.
Yes.
I will tackle on this visit to Uganda.
Yes.
And of course the meeting
his activities yesterday.
Yes, with King Abdullah, King of Jordan.
Yes.
In Jordan, we are tackling as the Egyptian state on confronting terrorism with all its size, with all its colors of terrorism. That terroristic attack that has occurred in Al-Kark is no different than we are facing in Sinai or whatsoever in Egypt, or even against the Egyptian church right in the middle of Cairo.
But now we can see that the terrorist attacks are taking place all over the world.
Yes.
So we haven't seen terrorist attacks in Jordan for a long time.
Yes.
So what's your take on this? Why Jordan?
Why Jordan now? Jordan is just a little bit away from the scene, from the confronting the battle. It's not a main member of fighting against terrorism. Of course, it's standing on the same side, of course, with Egypt and other countries all over the world and in the region against terrorism, but it's not taking the lead against terroristic attacks. Besides, I believe that there are some hidden aspects behind that attack.
Yes.
Maybe to withdraw the attack, the eyes from another attack that hit the Russian ambassador yesterday. Maybe, I believe so.
And also the president met with the Lebanese Foreign Minister Gibran Bassil. And your opinion on Egyptian-Lebanese relations in light of the election of a new president, who is President Michel Aoun?
Well, finally, Lebanon has its own president. That's a very constructive move and a very important step towards the stability in a neighbor country, where each and every country around us that has stability, that we have common stability within the borders and the region. This is very important to the region's stability.
Yes. And still with اليوم السابع newspaper, and we read the following headline: Egypt condemns the assassination of the Russian ambassador in Ankara. Egypt condemned on Monday the assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey, Andrei Karlov, in heinous terrorist attack. In a statement by the Foreign Ministry, Egypt offered sincere condolences and sympathy to the government and people of Russia. Egypt also stressed its solidarity with Russia in this humanitarian distress and its full support for the Russian efforts and every sincere international effort that aim at defeating terrorism and eradicate it from its roots. So, what are the repercussions of this terrorist attack?
We cannot separate that attack from the battle that is
Yes.
going on. It's a war, as a matter of fact, not just a battle,
Yes.
between Egypt on the head of the countries that are really fighting
Yes.
terrorism, and the battle, the front of terroristic states, regimes, intelligence all over the world. Egypt is taking the lead. And of course, we cannot separate this from the visit President Abdel Fattah Sisi has paid to Uganda the day before yesterday to treat the damage that has occurred in the file of Renaissance Dam by suspicious visits done by some Arab Arab responsibles to Ethiopia to invest in our own threats and in our own dangerous front to the south, to this the water file here is a very crucial to our state security. In the meantime, to analyze what happened really in Ankara yesterday night, we can tackle on some points here. Which year we are now? We are in the year of 2016, right? 100 years before, the Archduke of Austria, Franz Ferdinand, he was assassinated. And because of this assassination, the First World War has occurred. There is a very important significance here between the two scenes. Who is trying to set the fire in the region and maybe the world? Something else. That assassination, which we condemned by all means, by the strongest meaning of the word, has sabotaged or trying to sabotage the Syrian victories against terroristic groups and organizations supported by the US and Turkey and Qatar's regime, not the people, and some other powers in the region. Third, the assassinator, the killer, has took its own time, the liberty, total liberty, to say a speech, a very weird speech, in the name of so-called Islam or so-called Syrian people, which is a forger. It's not that way at all. It's against the Islam and against the Syrian people. He was speaking just like Osama bin Laden's speeches or Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi speeches. Both of Osama bin Laden or Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi are just puppets made by the US, CIA, and the Mossad. We can have a very symbol here. He was raising his left hand with his left finger to say, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Who is the Muslim? How can a Muslim raise his hand? This is a very important, this is a Nazi action. And he just, maybe some under a program like it's called so-called MK Ultra or something, to control his mind, to assassinate the ambassador, the Russian ambassador, and then receive death just like that, which takes us to another point. Why the police, the Turkish police, didn't capture the assassin
immediately?
Yes. First, they didn't assassinate him. They didn't capture him, and second, they shot him to death. Not shot him as to injure him, to hurt him only, to keep him alive, to know the secrets. Who wants to bury the secrets of his mission underground?
I think they should have arrested him first to know more information.
Yes,
about
I believe that
Yes.
the terroristic organization run by countries like Turkey and the US and the Qatari regime are just behind that assassination crime. And we are, I feel also at the same time, there was another crushing people in Berlin, named also by Islam, who is trying to demolish Islam and use the Muslim or so-called Muslims to demolish Islam, and in the meantime ignite the war in the region.
Yes, there is a clear war against Islam now.
Yes.
Yes. And now, dear viewers, we'll watch a report on the assassination of the Russian ambassador to Turkey. So stay tuned.
Message to the nation cast the attack as an attempt to undermine NATO member Turkey's relations with Russia, ties long tested by the war in Syria. At a special meeting at the Kremlin, President Putin ordered increased security at all Russian missions and said the bandits who committed the act would feel retribution. A video showed the attacker shouting, "Don't forget Aleppo, don't forget Syria," as his screams rang out. He passed about and shouted as he held the gun in one hand and waved the other in the air. Russia is an ally of Syrian President Bashar al-Assad, and its airstrikes helped Syrian forces end rebel resistance last week in the northern city of Aleppo. Turkey, which seeks Assad's ouster, has been repairing ties with Moscow after shooting down a Russian warplane over Syria last year. The gunman was killed by special forces. 3 other people were injured. Erdogan, who has faced a string of attacks by Kurdish militants as well as an attempted putsch in July, identified the attacker as a 22-year-old Melvit Altinas, who had worked for Ankara riot police for 2.5 years.
Welcome back. Now we move to Al Akhbar newspaper, and we read the following headline. Prime Minister heads economic group meeting. Prime Minister Sharif Ismail headed on Monday the economic group ministerial meeting. During the meeting, the ministers continued their discussions about the new investment draft law before presenting it to the cabinet and then to the House of Representatives. They also discussed a number of suggestions about the new draft law. The move aims to reach an integrated and comprehensive law that would create a suitable climate for investments. The new draft law includes incentives that attract more local and foreign investments and achieve the economic reform program adopted by the government at this stage. So to what extent the new investment law will help in attracting more investments, as we can see that they are providing more incentives to investors to come and invest in Egypt?
We have for a long time waited for that law to come into the light. And of course it means a lot to investors within the country and outside the country, of course, by all means. But there is a gap here. There is a gap here between the directions and the states by the statements said by the President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and the government.
Yes.
We need the government, as for the President has said and stated, we need from the government to be more active and more realizing the danger of the situation we are right now. We are fighting against not only terrorism, but also against those who are trying to sabotage our economy.
Yes.
To maintain the strength of the front between the people and the state.
Yes. And moving to Nile News, and we read Egypt, Bahrain begin Khalid ibn al-Walid 2016 military drills. Egypt began on Monday joint military drills with Bahrain titled Khalid ibn al-Walid 2016, which will continue until December 30th. The Egyptian military spokesman said in a statement that the drills come within the framework of joint exercises plan of the armed forces of both countries. So what is the significance of these joint military drills? Yes.
Very important, of course.
Yes.
We are expanding our visions towards other friendly countries and friendly armies. That cooperation just explains and expresses the importance of the Egyptian army to other countries to take some expertise, experiences from our leaders and the great performance of our Egyptian army.
And still with Al-Wafd newspaper, and we read thousands leave Aleppo under landmark Syrian evacuation deal. Thousands of traumatized Syrians left the rebel enclave in Aleppo on Monday under a complex evacuation agreement that will see government forces exert full control over the battered city. Families had spent hours waiting in freezing temperatures, sheltering from the rain in bombarded out apartment blocks and waiting desperately for news on a new wave of departures. So, in your opinion, to what extent the assassination of the Russian ambassador will affect the situation in Syria?
Well, it depends on the Russian reaction, of course. But before we look at this reaction expected to be positive or negative or whatsoever, we must realize something here. There is a map of terrorism in the region.
Yes.
There is the US, there is Iran, there is the Qatari regime, there is the Turkish regime, there is, of course, the Zionist existence that are sponsoring all of this. Okay. I believe in Syria, this is a very crucial moment there. And I believe that the Syrian army, I'm talking about the Arab Syrian army, should not get to a truce right now. We need to continue battling against terrorism and never stop until we free all the Syrian lands from ISIS in Tadmur and El Bab that is occupied by Turkey. Both those spots are very hot and extremely dangerous, not only to Syria but to Egypt.
Okay, Mr. Amr Abdel Rahmman, political analyst, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, and now, dear viewers, we'll go for a short break and we'll be back with the breakfast show, so stay tuned.